Thank you for staying with us here on Good Morning Arizona and Arizona's family. As we promised you, we are staying on top of the latest situation with the Arizona Supreme Court making a ruling on Arizona's abortion law. So this morning, we just got the 30-page ruling. It just came into the newsroom. And what we are hearing is that the justices are ruling in favor of the territorial law. That means going back to the 1864 law that was a near total ban on abortion. So from the beginning, we have been following this with Morgan Lowe. Yeah, I know, Morgan, you have been trying to go through these 30 pages right now, and you want to get right to the bottom of this because we knew it could either uphold the 15-week law or go ahead and go back to what was a civil-era ban.
So what the Supreme Court did was vacated the appeals court decision, which said that the 15-week law, a physician could perform an abortion, an elective abortion, up to 15 weeks, and afterwards it would only be in the case of saving the life of the mother. Has vacated that and affirmed the lower court's ruling, which says that this 1800s law is the law of the land in Arizona now. And I'll just read you one of this, probably the most important part of this ruling. This would mean physicians could perform abortions up to 15-week gestation point or to preserve the pregnant woman's health without incurring harsh criminal penalties. If the legislature or the people desire a different result, either could enact a new law. This would mean physicians could perform abortions up to 15-week gestation point or to preserve the pregnant woman's health. This is a complicated, This is a complicated opinion here. So we need to dive into it a little more before we know exactly what it means. It's a 47-page opinion. It came down 4 minutes ago. So we want to make sure we're getting it exactly right. So, it is such a confusing case because I went back and I watched the Supreme Court oral arguments that took place in December. And I'm not kidding, there was part of it where they were arguing over what the word currently means. And so it's a case that takes, every word in these sometimes conflicting state laws. And one of the problems here, one of the complications here, is that we have several state laws that regulate abortion, starting with that 1800s era law and ending with this law that was passed in 2022 that sets up this 15-week ban. But there's lots of laws in between. And so you had one side, the pro-life side, that said to the court, the only laws that we need to think about right now are that first one and this last one, and they can mesh. And what that would mean is that doctors can provide abortion care up to 15 weeks in an event to save the life of the mother, and then after 15 weeks, only if it was immediately required to save the life of the mother. Then the pro-choice side was saying, wait a second, you can't just take this old law and this new law and disregard a bunch of laws in the middle that were passed to set up regulations and requirements for doctors to perform abortions. And that's what the appeals court looked at and said, okay, so we're going to come to a happy medium. We're going to harmonize the laws. And what that meant, what the appeals court said, was that physicians could provide abortions up to 15 weeks for whatever reason they deem fit, and then afterwards it would only safeguard the life of the mother. This appears to sort of turn that on its head. We've got some more. Okay, so we have a statement here from Attorney General Kris Mayes that was just released.
I'm going to let you go ahead and look at that for a second as we do that. I know we're also awaiting, as we take you live right now, to the executive building at our state capitol. We're waiting for the governor. She's about to speak on this. I'm sure her people are doing the same thing right now that we are here and looking at this 47-page ruling, as you said, just now in our hands. You just, I know we're looking over what Attorney General Mayes has been saying. What did she say in her statement?
So she gives us some Clarity. She is the top lawyer in the state of Arizona, and she says the decision made by the Arizona Supreme Court today is unconscionable and an affront to freedom. Make no mistake, by effectively striking down a law passed this century and replacing it with one from 160 years ago, the court has risked the health and lives of Arizonans. She goes on to say, today's decision to reimpose a law from a time when Arizona wasn't a state, the Civil War was raging, and women couldn't even vote, will go down in history as a stain on our state. Statement from Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays. So obviously that tells us that, yes, this 47-page ruling here basically takes us back to this law that's 100+ years old and says that in Arizona, the only way a woman can get an abortion is if her life is in danger.
Is at risk.
And there's no carve out for incest or rape in that.
How big of a surprise do you think this is going to be to people outside of the Capitol?
I think it's going to be a surprise. I listened to the arguments. I'm a little surprised at this, that the court is basically disregarding 100 years of laws that were passed and are basically taking a law from way back and this new law and sort of making them fit together instead of taking into account these other laws, because there's nothing in the legislative language. The legislators never wrote, we're going to disregard these other laws that set up a framework for doctors to perform abortions.
And as we wait for to hear from the governor more on this, of course, one of the things that we keep bringing up is that eventually, regardless of what the decision is right now, again, we're going back to the territorial law, is that this will eventually go before the voters. We've heard of groups who've been gathering signatures to leave it up to the voters to decide where this should be. And so far, we've heard they have enough signatures. So again, this obviously in place right now. November's still a long ways out. So what happens in between? Yeah,
they need 350,000-ish signatures. They say they have more than 500,000 to get this on the ballot. Ultimately, it probably will end up in front of the voters, and that is going to create a political situation, because then it's up to the people to say, do we want this or not? This may rally Democrats. It may rally those who are pro-choice to show up to the polls, and maybe they vote for people who they view share their viewpoint, which might be a shot in the arm for Democrats in the state. There's been evidence in other states where constitutional amendments that enshrine abortion rights have passed, some very red states like Kansas, where voters show up, vote for this, but then still vote for their Republican or their conservative candidates. So the actual effect of what this is going to have on who represents us, we don't know.
So if it goes to the vote and the people decide opposite of this, is there any chance that it could go back to the state Supreme Court, or is it done?
Generally when there's a referendum, the only way it goes to the Supreme Court is if it's challenged, because maybe it's vague.
Okay.
So the key is, if it is specific, there's not much that the other side could challenge it with.
And we know what the groups are saying is they want it to be up to a woman and up to the right to up to 22 to 24 weeks, basically viability, that abortion would be allowed until then. So even if it were to be the 15 weeks that we know right now, we have vacated that according to the justices here at the Arizona State Supreme Court. There's also a big difference there in timing.
Yeah, and I think it really does come down to timing when it comes to voters seeing it. And one of the pitfalls that the group that's putting this on the ballot may face is making it too far along, where some people may be comfortable with an abortion early on, but are uncomfortable as viability becomes an issue. So that's something to look into, what the actual letter of that referendum says.
Well, this is a big deal for Planned Parenthood and all those offices that, I mean, do we assume they shut their doors, or wonder what happens with them at this point?
So right now, we want to take you live outside of the Capitol to one of the groups speaking. Can you just repeat to me, Jake? It's Arizona for Abortion Access. Let's go ahead and take a listen in as they react to this news.
Suggesting that women put Tylenol between our legs if we need reproductive health care. Arizonans deserve to get these type of antics out of our doctors' offices and out of our private lives.
That's right.
So I know that we are feeling a sense of despair today, but in July, we'll be turning in more than double the required minimum number of signatures.
Yes, you bet.
And in November, we'll make history when Arizona voters overwhelmingly vote to restore abortion rights and reproductive freedom in our state constitution once and for all. Thank you, and I guess I'm introducing Denise Link to come up and say a few words. Thank you, Denise.
Great. Good morning. I've been a nurse practitioner in women's health since 1979. I moved to Arizona 20 years ago after Arizona passed the full practice authority for nurse practitioners. I'm now retired from full practice in 2020, and after 4 decades of providing full, high-quality care before the devastating Dobbs decision. That means in my professional lifetime, I never saw the type of punishing, anti-science, and restrictions harming Arizona patients now. For the entirety of my nursing career, I could talk freely with my patients. I could inform and educate them fully with evidence-based options and provide appropriate referrals when needed. I do not persuade or push. That's not what we as healthcare professionals do. We state facts, we explain the options, and we support the patients in making the decisions using those facts and options that are best for their situation. Patients should be the final arbiter, the sole decision maker, along, if they choose, with a partner or a family member or on their own, because after all, it's their life and their health in the balance. If I was still in practice today, I don't know how I would do my job. In fact, I wouldn't be doing my job if I deprived patients of all of the facts and the evidence-based clinical standards available. That in itself is another way these types of restrictions harm all of us. They drive providers who are so critically needed out of the fields in which we are experts. They rob every single person of getting the fullest and best care available because professionals dedicated to the science and standards of our field choose to leave or close a practice rather than offer care that fails to meet standards for quality, accessibility, and full informed consent. The ballot measure is essential, especially after today's decision, because providers must be able to talk to patients about their goals, aspirations, and health without any of us, patient and provider alike, worrying about criminal accusations or basing health decisions on inadequate knowledge or arbitrary barriers to care. The decision today by the Arizona Supreme Court is completely out of bounds. And Arizona patients like the ones I've cared for definitely deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Chandra Goff, an acute care physician's associate here in the East Valley.
Speak up, it's not additional.
Okay, thank you. I'm Chandra Goff, an acute care PA. I've been a PA for 10 years, and I'd like to add my perspective on why it's so critical that we continue to support the Arizona Abortion Access Act in light of today's ruling. All of us can probably relate to one fundamental truth about medicine if we think about it in our own terms, in terms of our own health and the health of a loved one. The truth is that medicine and healthcare are not black and white. Our bodies, our life choices, our physical, mental, emotional, and socioeconomic realities are all different, and therefore our possible outcomes are all unique. To use an example other than abortion, let's talk about antibiotics. You might know that when you take antibiotics, they usually kill some of the good bacteria in your intestines, which can sometimes leave prime intestinal real estate open for harmful bacteria to take hold. And that's what happened to a patient of mine recently. She had a serious kidney infection and needed to be hospitalized to get IV antibiotics. Presumably while in the hospital, this patient was exposed to a type of bacteria called C. diff, which is an intestinal infection that can be difficult to treat and fatal. Basically, the antibiotics and the hospitalization that were needed to treat her kidney infection led to a serious intestinal infection. You can imagine that it's difficult to assess ahead of time the risk of that happening in any given case, plus the risks of everything else that can go wrong. The clinicians caring for her took into consideration the various antibiotic options, their likelihood of success with her particular infection, their risk, including the interactions between antibiotics and her other medicines, and her medical conditions, and a whole lot of other factors. Now think about how ridiculous it would be if politicians regulated what clinicians like me are allowed to discuss with our patients about antibiotic care. The options, the risks, the possible outcomes, the antibiotic choices, it's equally absurd and impossible to ethically regulate abortion care. The reality is that medical cases are rarely simple, obvious, or black and white. They're usually complicated and nuanced, including abortion cases. Medical decisions are far too complex to put into laws. It's impossible to account for all the potential scenarios. Abortion is already by far the most highly regulated medical procedure, despite its good safety record. Situations that are ethically difficult and complicated occur in all types of health care. That is not at all unique to reproductive care. I have difficult, nuanced conversations with my patients every single shift about what's going on in their body.
Well, right now you've been watching a press conference from Arizona for abortion access, where everybody reacting to, I think, for most people, a surprise ruling from the Arizona Supreme Court that basically has said we are going back to the territorial law from 1864, a near total ban on abortion.
Yeah, so the governor is set to speak on this. It's interesting to wonder whether they assumed, like a lot of people, that they were going to just stick with the law as it currently read.
Yeah, and
as opposed to going back that many years.
You never can tell. It sounds cliche. It's interesting in looking more deeply into this ruling that the two justices, the Chief Justice and the Vice Chief Justice of the Arizona Supreme Court, Justice Brutinel and Justice Timmer, were the ones who asked the most questions. There was only one other Justice, Bullock, who asked a couple of questions. Everybody else was pretty much silent. And these two justices are the ones who dissented. It sort of gave, if you watched the arguments, you sort of got the idea that maybe they were skeptical of the pro-life argument here. But that was because these two justices did most of the questioning. And I did come across one line here that really sums it all up.
Okay.
In light of this opinion, physicians are now on notice that all abortions, except those necessary to save a woman's life, are illegal. And that's it.
Wow.
So all doctors being put on notice, all abortions illegal, except to save
there's Governor
the mother's
Hobbs
life.
stepping up. So let's go ahead and listen to that, guys.
Hello, and thank you all for joining us. It is a dark day in Arizona. Just now, the Arizona Supreme Court issued its opinion in Planned Parenthood v. Mays, upholding one of the most extreme abortion bans in the country. And while it is currently stayed, we continue to live under an unacceptable ban. a law that still strips Arizonans of their personal autonomy and has no exceptions for women who are the victims of rape or incest or any regard for pregnancy complications. Let me be clear. Arizona's 2022 abortion ban is extreme and hurts women. And the near total Civil War era ban that continues to hang over our heads only serves to create more chaos for women and doctors in our state. As governor, I promised I would do everything in my power to protect our reproductive freedoms. Here's what I've done so far and how we can continue to work together to end this never-ending assault on our basic rights. First, my executive order removing the ability of county attorneys to prosecute women and doctors for performing abortions remains. I refuse to allow extremist county prosecutors to use this abortion ban to lock up women and doctors seeking or providing needed health care. Second, my administration has expanded access to over-the-counter contraceptives. Today, Arizonans across the state can walk into their pharmacy to obtain birth control medication without a doctor's prescription. Third, last year, I vetoed legislation that would have threatened access to IVF and potentially endangered access to any and all abortions in our state. And any other legislation that threatens to take away our rights will continue to be met with my veto stamp. Fourth, I am calling on the legislature to do the right thing right now and repeal this 1864 ban and protect access to reproductive health care. The Republican majority in the legislature has time and again refused to act to protect our freedoms. They have refused to repeal this extreme Civil War, near total abortion ban. In fact, the Senate President and House Speaker fought in this very case to keep this extreme ban in place, and as it stands, they might have their way. They have refused to act to protect IVF and contraception. Instead, they tell women to put aspirin between their knees. While I'm proud to be a backstop to their extremism, Arizona women should never have to fear the next court decision. It's why I'm proud to be standing here with Senator Birch and Representative Stahl Hamilton and these other legislators who are dedicated to protecting our freedoms. We are 14 days away from this extreme ban coming back to life. It must be repealed immediately. And while I'm glad IVF and contraception are still available to Arizonans, we know they are under attack. Just last year, I vetoed a bill that would have threatened access to IVF. We must act proactively to protect these essential rights. Finally, this November, Arizonans may have an opportunity to make their voices heard on this important issue. To the people across Arizona who are concerned about the future of abortion rights in our state, who are worried about their bodily autonomy, who don't want to see the freedom of their wives, sisters, and daughters restricted, you can make your concerns known at the ballot box, and I encourage you to do so. Now I'm going to hand it over to Representative Stahl Hamilton. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor Hobbs, for the work that you are doing and what you will continue to do to protect our rights and our freedoms. And thank you all for being here. This is a devastating day, but we are far from being defeated. How can we be defeated when the vast majority of Arizonans, 9 out of 10, support the right to get an abortion and want government out of our reproductive health care decisions? The Ducey Supreme Court chose chaos and immediate chaos, fear, legal jeopardy for tens of thousands of everyday Arizonans and our medical professionals whose health care decisions within 14 days could be superseded by a law passed during the Civil War, decades before Arizona became a state and before women had the right to vote. Republicans will not stop here. Every Republican in the legislature supported this decision, not you. And this is evidenced by the Speaker of the House and Senate President submitting an amicus brief on their behalf, arguing for the Civil War era ban. This is not the end of our fight. Now is the time to continue our work together to repeal this ban, beginning with passing the Arizona Right to Contraception Act to ensure Arizonans hold on to their rights to make their own decisions about when to start a family with no government interference. Efforts ramping up around the country illustrate that contraception is next. I know that there is an initiative out there gathering signatures to codify abortion rights in our state, and I felt it would pass with overwhelming numbers. Now, I have no doubt. I am proud to stand with the governor and my legislative colleagues who have your back. This is the beginning of putting our anger to work. Find a friend, grab a neighbor or relative, sign the petition, collect signatures, and remind our government of the political will of our people. They don't get to have the final word. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Senator Eva Birch. A couple weeks ago, I had an abortion, a safe, legal abortion here in Arizona for a pregnancy that I very much wanted. A pregnancy that failed, like many of my pregnancies before it, an embryo that was dying, and a miscarriage that was destined to happen. Somebody took care of me. Somebody gave me a procedure so that I wouldn't have to experience another miscarriage, the pain, the mess, the discomfort. And now we're talking about whether or not we should put that doctor in jail. This is outrageous that we would even dignify the consideration of this type of ban. A ban drafted when women had no say, when Arizona was not a state. This isn't what the people of Arizona or the people of this country want. We're talking about a small number of really extreme political leaders calling the shots for everybody else. Republicans don't want this. Independents don't want this. Democrats don't want this. We have to look at who our elected leaders are. The time is now. It's done. I've had enough. The people of Arizona have had enough. We are electing pro-choice candidates in November. Watch it happen. That's all I have to say.
I'm not a legislator, but I'm here because I signed the governor's brief in this case, and I'm deeply saddened, by the court's decision. I participated in this brief because I caught a glimpse firsthand of what happens when abortion is inaccessible and you need one. We simply can't tolerate this in our state, Arizona, that we all love and call home. My husband and I were surprised to learn that we were pregnant just 3 weeks after our wedding, and shocked when we discovered that it was twins. We couldn't contain ourselves and immediately told everyone. We were even picking out names and looking at wallpaper for their nursery. They were so loved. For our anatomy scan, our friends placed bets on their genders, and we learned that our twins were a girl and a boy. We also learned that our boy, twin B, had a critical heart defect that was pumping blood into his lungs. Our joy turned into despair. They scheduled a follow-up, and we went home, nervous wrecks, but trying to remain positive. Our doctor explained that this was very serious, that I might not be able to carry this pregnancy to term, and that it was high risk for our healthy twin and also for me. She explained the process of a selective reduction, a specialized procedure that would stop the heart of twin B and allow me to continue to carry twin A to term. The doctor was working to arrange this for us, but the one facility she knew to provide it was not able to. This procedure was technically legal at the time, but reproductive health care is generally scarce in a state like Arizona, where a doctor's freedom to safely provide or even recommend abortion care is constantly under threat. Since that facility could not help us and the clock was ticking, our doctor let us know that she was calling physicians she knew all over the country and that we may need to travel to New York or DC. We were relieved when she finally let us know that she found a doctor in LA who could help us. And so in March of 2020, as the world was shutting down, I was 20 weeks along in my twin pregnancy, and we were able to get the care we needed in LA. The selective reduction procedure took place safely in an operating room in a hospital because it is health care. It was $9,000 up front and out of pocket. We went home where I carried our healthy baby and our dead baby for the remaining harrowing 4 months of my pregnancy before going into labor and delivering both of them. It was an otherwise safe, normal vaginal delivery. My experience was traumatic, but could have been so much worse had I not been able to access the care that I needed. I'm grateful every day that I was able to, but I should not have had to leave the state for that. Many Arizonans might not be able to say the same, and nobody should have to. Thank you.
Okay. We'll open things up for questions. If you can please raise your hands. I know we have a lot of people here. We'll get to everybody. Right there.
What does this mean for Plan B going forward?
Well, you heard Governor Hobbs there pretty upset, calling this extreme and creating chaos, and that it really hurts women, and that she said she will continue to do what she can to fight for reproductive freedoms for women, one of which, namely, is to make it so that county attorneys cannot prosecute. But let's go back to the governor.
We don't need to call a special session. The legislature's in session right now, and they can do this right now. They can do it today, and they should. They should listen to their constituents, 9 out of 10 Arizonans who support access to abortion, and do the right thing so that we are not living under the confusion and chaos and lack of access to health care that's needed. As you heard from those 2 stories, they can do it right now.
Right there, Mary Jo.
Governor, have you made that call to the legislative leaders, or do you intend to do that?
This is the call right here, and I have done that before.
Over there on the left, I can't see faces. Sorry.
Oh yes,
it's Barbara.
Yeah, Governor, just your general reaction. You might be shocked, perhaps, at the more onerous bill prevailed. I mean, are you surprised that this is the one they chose?
I'm devastated by this decision, and I know that many Arizonans are as well, and trying to figure out what this means for not just the health care they need, but in the future. We know that IVF is under attack. We know that contraception is under attack.
Let me follow up with something. Do you fear for the climate, the general political climate in the coming weeks and months over this issue?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you fear the political climate in the coming weeks and months over this issue?
I mean, we are in an incredibly divisive political climate. This certainly adds to that. I certainly think that this will motivate voters in November.
Right there with your hand up.
Eric.
Sorry.
It's Eric.
It's Eric.
Hi. Governor, and anyone else who spoke, how vital now with this decision this morning, how vital is it to get the ballot measure in front of voters and then have voters show up and speak out?
The legislature has ignored the will of the voters on this issue for decades, certainly with the 2022 ban that was passed, and certainly with the leadership signing on to uphold the 1864 ban. And the ballot box is the way that voters can have their say and overrule the legislature on this issue that the vast majority of Arizonans support.
Others, right there.
You mentioned your executive order that's still in effect. Now that this ruling has come down, what's your confidence that will stand up to the court challenges?
I say bring it on. I would not have issued the executive order if I didn't think it was legally sound. We want to make sure that women have access to the health care that they need and that overzealous prosecutors aren't using this law to criminalize them.
What impact do you believe this will have on the presidential election in Arizona?
As I said, I think this issue is going to motivate voters in November, and I'll leave it there. Mary Jo.
Are you, what's your stance on an appeal during this 2-week stay period?
I'm sure there's going to be an appeal. It's going back to the trial court, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to say something that's not correct. And we just got the decision the same time you all did, so I have no more information than that.
In the back.
If the ballot initiative is successful, is that going to lead to legal issues between this and the ban, or is that going to override the ban already?
The ballot measure is a constitutional amendment, and it would supersede this ban.
Right there.
Given that November is months away and that GOP leaders are unlikely to repeal the ban, what kinds of resources are you looking to mobilize to help women access care out of state if they have to?
I am positive that the folks that are working to provide access to abortion will work to ensure that there are funds to help people get the care they need that they cannot get in Arizona.
Anything else? Right there.
Yeah, are there concerned about challenges to the law that have abortion prosecution authority to Chris Mays?
I think that was what we just touched on, and I'm not concerned about legal challenges.
Anybody else?
Eric had his hand up.
One last one. Thank you, Governor. Have you spoken with Attorney General Mays in the last hour or so after getting this decision, and what comes next?
We have not had that conversation yet. This is the first I'm talking about it. We all got the decision the same time you did.
Governor, is there any, so you just kind of mentioned the possibility of people going out of state for abortions. Do you plan on having any conversations with people like California Governor Gavin Newsom or any other leaders in neighboring states where the abortion access laws are less restrictive?
Absolutely. I'll do everything in my power as governor to ensure that Arizonans can get the care that they need.
Are we have time for maybe two more? Back there.
You know, the issue of the life of the mother, you know, there are folks that this is particularly bad when that life, the mother's life is in danger. Since the 1864 ban takes that exception into account, why do we have such problems?
Consideration for the life of the
So you've
mother.
been listening to Governor Hobbs fighting back against this ruling. Obviously, there is the other side to this.
Yes.
So
we want to check in with Jason Berry now. We do have crews all across the valley this morning getting reaction to this. Obviously, just I think surprising for a lot of people that the Arizona Supreme Court stating we are going back to the territorial law that is a near ban on abortion. So let's check in with Jason Berry right now, who is live outside the Supreme Court this morning. Jason?
Yeah, good morning. I think this ruling did catch a lot of people by surprise. I don't think anybody really thought that the Arizona Supreme Court would go back to that 1800s decision, but that is what appears to have happened. I've looked around here a little bit here at the grounds here at the Arizona Supreme Court and at the state capitol. I have seen a number of additional patrol officers. They're cruising around the building here. They're cruising around the state capitol, kind of anticipating the possibility that we could see some protesters arrive either here at the Arizona Supreme Court or at the state capitol, with a lot of people obviously very surprised and very concerned about today's ruling. Coming up a little bit later today, we are going to talk to some pro-life folks and some organizations who are very much in favor of the Arizona Supreme Court ruling that came down just a short time ago. We're going to get their reaction. Obviously, a lot of strong opinions on both sides. A lot of people wondering, okay, so what happens next? this seems to now fall into the laps of either the Arizona legislature, which either needs to take some additional action, which may or may not happen, or it could possibly fall to what happens in November if this referendum gets on the ballot, and then it'll be up to Arizona voters to decide the future of abortion rights in Arizona. But again, kind of all is quiet here at the Arizona Supreme Court, but again, that could change if we do see some people coming forward and voicing their opinions and protesting. We will be here all day keeping tabs on what's going on. But right now, it appears like everything's pretty quiet.
Jason, thank you. We want to head back to the state capitol. That's where Dennis Welch is standing by with more reaction on what the governor just had to say. Dennis?
Yeah, the governor's just wrapping up her press conference here just a couple of minutes ago. You can see a lot of people breaking down right now. A lot of heavy media presence here to chronicle, to watch this really shocking decision from the Supreme Court today. And I think one of the key takeaways to remember is, as of right now, the law does not, that 1864 law has not been reinstated as of today. You still have a 2-week period now as it goes back to the trial court for people to challenge this and see what happens there. So this is a process we'll be watching closely into that. And the governor was very adamant today that one of the things she wants and is calling for from this Republican-controlled legislature is she wants them to repeal that old 1864 law and put something else in its place right now. And we asked how she intends to get that done. She wasn't very clear on that. She's definitely not going to call a special session of the legislature. She says it doesn't need that. But we're also going to be, so we're going to be waiting now that when we're done here, when we're done doing this report, we're going to be traveling down, going down the 9 floors and over to the legislature. Going to be trying to get some comment from some of the Republican leaders down there to get their reaction, to see how they want to react to this decision. Again, it's just a really monumental, kind of stunning decision, maybe one of the biggest decisions I've ever seen, if not the biggest decision made by the Supreme Court that I've seen in my career covering the Capitol down here. Back into you guys.
Dennis, thank you so much, and we'll check in with you throughout the morning as well as you talk to more folks there. Back here in the studio, Morgan Lowe has been with us and giving us his input on this, because you've been going through some of the papers, and we talked about how Governor Hobbs basically is calling on the legislature. It's in your hands now to repeal this law. You can do this right now. We don't need to call for a special session. You can do it immediately. And the legislature, even from way back then, comes into play into the decision.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to find what the justices were thinking. What was their legal mindset when they were looking at this issue? And I found a pretty interesting line here. It says, "Here we consider a statute that was never repealed. In fact, it was recodified even after it was enjoined." So what they're saying is the legislature could have repealed this 1800s law. It didn't. It actually recodified it in the early 1900s and then recodified it again later in the 1900s. And they gave that weight, the fact that that law is still on the books. So they said that is why they really looked at this and said, okay, this might be the most important law when we look at these laws that were passed subsequently. And they also make a big point out of the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned, and that these subsequent laws that sort of regulated abortion proceedings here in Arizona were reliant on Roe v. Wade. And now that that's gone, this pre-Roe ban on abortions should take effect.
Is what should stand, because it is the law. Right. Because it's still there.
And they also say if the legislature wants to do something different, they can. They have the power to legislate.
But even if it goes back to the legislature, like the governor's calling on, it's still likely to go to a vote to the people in November.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. This is definitely headed to the ballot.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the questions are. You know, you're hearing it from people and saying, well, what happens now, right? If we're waiting till November, what do we follow in between? What law exists? Is it this one, the total ban?
This is the law of the land right now, and this is the Arizona Supreme Court speaking. You know, there's 14 days before this takes effect that will allow the parties to see if there's another constitutional issue. One of the other constitutional issues that came up was that some of these laws have different penalties for a doctor performing or somebody performing an abortion. And so it's a due process issue. You know, how do we know what the penalty is? They're conflicting. So the Supreme Court sort of carved out one little sort of caveat that they could bring those issues up. I don't know if they're going to, but at this point, this is clear, and it's the Arizona Supreme Court. There is not a federal issue here because there is no federal right to an abortion. This is the law of the land.
We want to get back to the state capitol. Alexis is with the group Arizonans Access to Abortion, and she's got the latest on what they have to say about this.
Well, they really say that this was their worst nightmare. So there were a couple things we heard from about today. So we heard from medical professionals who say this law that will be taking effect in 14 days is complicated. They say that it should be between a doctor and a medical professional and their client or their the person who is seeking an abortion, because it's very complicated on what really is an abortion that would be medically necessary. So they are hoping that this will be the extra push that they need to get those extra signatures. They really expect to have at least double the signatures that they need already, but they really hope that this pushes people over the edge. A lot of people they're expecting will be upset over this law that will be taking effect. So they're hoping that those people get the push necessary to go out and vote. They're really hoping that they'll be able to get this into a ballot measure that people will be voting on. They say that this is not what they feel the people here in Arizona really want, and so they're hoping that people have the right to vote on this decision. So again, we heard from Arizona for Abortion Access. They have been collecting signatures for a ballot measure that would then have people vote on whether or not abortion is legal here in Arizona and what the necessary weeks that it would be for an abortion that would be allowed. So again, lots of people here just speaking out against what happened today and that decision that the Arizona Supreme Court made. They feel it is not a true reflection of how people here in our state truly feel. So this is something that they have been pushing for, this ballot measure, for months at this point, and they say they feared that this would happen, but they really do hope that it will be the push forward they need to make sure that people here in Arizona can vote on this ballot measure.
All righty, thank you for that point of view. Former governor, Republican Governor Doug Ducey also released a statement on Twitter, now X, and so if we could bring that up. He wrote, "I signed the 15-week law as governor because it is thoughtful, conservative policy and an approach to this very sensitive issue that Arizonans can actually agree on. The ruling today is not the outcome I would have preferred, and I call on our elected leaders to heed the will of the people and address this issue with a policy that is workable and reflective of our electorate." So interesting that even a Republican is saying that he doesn't agree with this.
Right, and when he signed the law, he released a statement very much in favor of this, saying it was sort of the compromise. It was a good restriction that he believed was appropriate for the time. But what we have now is not that law. What we have now is a law that was passed 100+ years ago.
Right. All right, Dennis is outside the state capitol with more reaction. Dennis?
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to that Doug Ducey conversation right there. Like, he is known, really, pretty much has been told pretty much from the beginning, before he even signed that law and shortly after he signed that law, that the law was pretty clear, that it wasn't meant to overturn previous existing laws, such as that law that dates back to 1864. So he has always said since the beginning that he wanted the 15-week ban in place, but this would not be the preferred outcome. But the bottom line is that this was his court that ruled on the law that he signed that went into law just several years ago, back in 2022. Now, as far as other reaction out there, we're waiting to hear from the Republican leaders down in the legislature. Made a few phone calls out there to them. The leaders right now, the House Speaker Ben Toma, Senate President Peterson, have not said anything at this point. We're going to be expecting to hear some reaction, at least on social media here, from some of the Republican members down there, because right now the future of Arizona abortion, the immediate future of abortion here in Arizona, is in their hands, as we have this stay, this pause for 2 weeks until this law takes effect and is reinstated. In the meantime, this ruling, again, I cannot stress enough how shocking and how shocked a lot of people were about this decision, but it is going to add a lot of fuel to to the political fires that are trying to enshrine the protection to abortion in the state constitution in November. Just to give you a hint on that, Morgan brought this up just a couple of minutes ago. That group has already gathered over 500,000 signatures to reserve a spot on the November ballot. Now, they only needed 383,000. They're going to continue to gather those signatures until the July 3rd deadline, I think, to make a really strong statement about how people support having access to abortion in this state. But I can't stress enough that at the end of the day, the voters here in Arizona are going to have the final say. I cannot stress enough, again, how big of a decision, how monumental of a day it has been here down at the state capitol and for the state of Arizona with this decision. Back into you guys.
Hey, Dennis, and you can stay on here. Outside the political ramifications, what is going to happen with the women who might need an abortion for whatever reason in the meantime? Does it mean they're going to Mexico? I mean, there was talk about that before, or having to go to other
Going
states.
somewhere else where it is legal, yeah.
Yeah, and that is a question. We're going to be watching that play out here over the next weeks and months until that election is decided and whatnot. The governor was asked about that, and she said she's going to make sure that women are going to have the resources they need to get the medical care that they desire. Now, does that mean going out of state? Well, likely, if the ruling holds now that abortion is illegal in this state, they'll have to go outside of Arizona to get that kind of care. The governor said that she's going to make sure that they have the number of resources, the amount of resources necessary to make that happen. What does that look like? What does that mean? How is that accomplished? These are all things we're going to have to wait on and see how the governor plays this out.
Yeah, and she pointed out, reminding people that, you know, the over-the-counter pill is available still here in Arizona. There's still those options. So, Dennis, I know you are going to be moving over to the 9th floor to talk to hopefully some legislatures, as we've been hearing Governor Hobbs saying it can be repealed right now by our legislatures. So we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your coverage down there at the state capitol this morning. And we'll check in with you later on, of course, here.
Hey, Morgan, we've been talking about this 14-day thing. Explain what that means again and what could happen within that period.
So it's on hold for 14 days, sent back to the trial court for the litigants to decide if there are other constitutional issues. And one of those constitutional issues is the fact that a couple of these laws have different penalties. Okay. So the doctor's subjected to different penalties, and that brings up what's called a due process law. How do I know what the penalty is going to be if I violate this law? And that's actually a pretty significant legal issue. Is it going to be enough for the trial court to say, okay, we're going to relitigate this? I have no idea, but that is probably the big issue that they're going to argue about.
Okay. We are getting word. We're going on the fly with this, as you guys are, because of this news just coming into the newsroom. We're waiting to hear from the Attorney General. Chris Mays is expected to speak, along with Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, right there at the podium. We're waiting for them to arrive there. But we will continue, of course, to get reaction from around the state, from legislatures, from our different leaders. Also, we heard earlier from a mother impacted by abortion. And then, of course, there are the folks who are pro-life, and we are getting their reaction as well.
It'll be interesting to hear from state lawmakers, because I suspect we're going to hear from some lawmakers, Republican lawmakers who are in safe districts. They're going to come out in support of this. But I'm curious about the Republican lawmakers who are in swing districts, because, you know, it's the difference between 1 or 2 seats, the balance of power at the state legislature, and what they say, how they react to this could impact whether they get reelected and affect the balance of power.
How could it not affect things in November?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about, you know, some of these swing districts, the difference between the winner and the loser was only a couple of thousand votes. So an issue like this gets more voters from one side to show up, and that really changes the dynamic.
And it's very interesting because earlier when we were watching that news conference coming out of the governor's office, we know Representative Stahl Hamilton had noted, reminding everybody 9 out of 10 Arizonans do support the right to get an abortion. Obviously, there's a difference on, you know, what is viable versus 15 weeks and what not. So listening to the people, what do you think legislatures are going to do at this point?
I would be surprised if our state legislature did anything with this, at least not until after the election. You have the conservatives who have run on fairly consistent anti-abortion platforms, and they probably wouldn't survive a primary if they voted to repeal this law and to allow some kind of abortion. So, you know, that's just from a long-time legislative watcher, my opinion.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people, politicians, don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
It's such a hot button. I mean, President Trump came out the other day and said he's going to leave it to the states, which is probably smart for him to say that.
Yeah, I mean, and we can't discount the number of people that this ruling will rally on the right to life side. I mean, there are people who really think that this is terrific, and this may rally them to show up to the polls. But what we have seen in other states, even the dark red states, is that other pro-choice effort, you know, it's like a tidal wave compared to the support that these measures that really just eliminate a woman's right to abortion.
I think it's so interesting when you look at it at the surface, you think, oh, it's so black and white. You're either for it or you're not. But every woman that we hear from has a different story that you wouldn't even ever think about.
It's just so personal.
It is.
And that's what plays such a huge role in this and why it is such an emotionally charged issue. Again, you're looking at a live picture right now from outside the Supreme Court, or I should say the state capitol. We're waiting for Mayor Kate Gallego to speak, along with our Attorney General Chris Mays, as reaction starts to pour in. You know, we look at this and I think everybody at home is maybe a little in shock of what this ruling is. Bottom line is we have 14 days to get hopefully everything sorted out. We'll see what the governor does, right? I mean, that's all we can do is wait, and it looks like at the end of the day, it will be up to you at home, the voters, making that stance in November once this gets on the ballot, if that's where it's headed, which it looks like it is with the amount of signatures that the groups have to get it on the November ballot.
I mean, what we're likely going to see is that this take effect in 14 days, and this will be the law of the land for the next several months at least.
Until November, if it's changed.
And that's a long time away. That is a long time away. So we know this is something that affects families out there, and we will continue to stay on top of this, of course, and see what is happening. We have crews again spread out throughout the valley, getting reaction, getting your reaction, and you can count on Arizona's family to stay on top of this, giving you every side of the story.
In the meantime, do you think that, you know, we've heard from politicians, we're going to hear from individuals, you think we'll hear from lawyers and that sort of thing who are going to try to break down the law of all this?
Oh, yeah. There's going to be some criticism by legal minds, constitutional scholars, Arizona constitutional scholars about this decision. There's probably going to be some support as well.
All right. Morgan, we know you've been following this since the arguments were heard back in December closely, so thank you for your expertise in this. And we are going to take a break here. You can count on us for continuing coverage, of course, right here on Arizona's Family.
It should be terrifying to all of us.
Real people, real problems, real life solutions. Investigate TV Plus.
Weekdays at 1 on Arizona's Family 3 TV.